Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for peak excitement? Because today we're not only building a kick-ass high-performance gaming PC that you're going to love, but we're doing it in the brand new version of my favorite case, the Lian O11 EVO RGB. But we also have some fans that have LCDs in. Usually I'd be a bit more like careless with these and they'd probably fall on the floor, but not these. They've got screens in. Throughout this video then, we're going to be showing you just how easy it is to build your own gaming PC with some very high-end components. The whole thing is going to look incredible, and of course at the end, assuming it works, we'll be firing this bad boy up and showing you exactly how it performs in the latest AAA titles. All that's left to say is a massive thank you to AMD and Gigabyte for actually sponsoring this video. Let's get started. First things first then, and to kick our build off, I want to have a look at our brand new chassis, and this isn't going to be like a major revision. The changes are not necessarily hard to remember, but they're in that sort of ballpark, right? There's nothing dramatically different about this. But actually the main thing that you'll notice, and I know loads of people will appreciate, is that you have this little removable bar here now. So you have all glass all the way around. So you still have a very similar dual chamber layout, so you can have plenty of airflow coming in through here, and then you get the best of both worlds really between aesthetics and performance. We take this off and have a look around the side. Again, very familiar, so if you already have the EVO, don't worry, you're not missing out on too much. You still get that same cable management bar. You've got a very similar amount of space in here really, but one of the other main dramatic differences that you can do now is to have this in reverse mode. So you can adjust the motherboard tray, so if you want to have more clearance at the top or the bottom, you can do that. But if you want to flip the whole thing around and then have an inverted build, either for aesthetics or maybe you need your PC to be on this side of the desk and you still want to see it, then it's nice to have that flexibility. But let's pop off the glass. And then with our screwdriver, we should be able to remove the transit strut that needs to disappear. I mean, it doesn't need to, but the whole point is you take this out. And then, ladies and gentlemen, you will be greeted with our now much more open frame that actually is going to be a fair bit easier to build in. I mean, don't forget you can also take this top piece off as well. Just like that. And then you've got loads of light that actually comes in here, and you've got removable brackets here and then at the top as well. So if you do want to mount radiators and things, same down the bottom actually as well. Fantastic for water cooling. You've got so much flexibility, you can put all of this stuff in here and it's going to look great and hopefully perform good too. But in order to actually kickstart our build, we will of course need a motherboard. This is the Gigabyte Aorus B650 Aorus Elite AX. We've used this so many times on the channel, right? Very robust. And the main thing really about this is that it is very well built, but it's not the most affordable. No, it's the opposite. Sorry, Gigabyte. It's not the most expensive motherboard in the world, which obviously means you can spend loads more money on other components as well and still maintain, again, great performance, and in the case of, well, better visuals. But let's pop this out of our anti-static bag so we can actually show you. And the first thing that you've probably noticed is that we've gone for a black motherboard in a white chassis. This is kind of deliberate. I wanted to go for a black and white build for a change. One of my favorite things, by the way, about this motherboard is just how many USB-A ports you have on this. How many actually is that? 4, 5, 9, 11 plus a C. Surely that's enough. This motherboard does also have Wi-Fi support as well, which, as we know, over 50% of you actually use, is very useful. And it does support PCI Generation 4 SSDs as well as PCI Gen 5 on this top SSD slot as well. Pretty future-proof. Of course, you'll also be needing to grab yourself a CPU or a processor. They are the same thing, they're just different names. This is the Ryzen 7 7800X3D. This is actually my personal one that I bought that I'm borrowing for this rig. I love this thing. It's 8 cores and it's pretty much built for gaming from the ground up with that 3D V cache. I mean, obviously there are loads of different options available. If you want better value, then you should go for the Ryzen 5 7600. But if you're going for this sort of GPU, this is going to give you the best performance. And while you can get things like the 7950X3D, that obviously is more expensive, or you can get the 7900X that has 12 cores, but this is your best all-round option if your priority is gaming. So let's open this up. Do the same with the motherboard slot. As always, don't damage any pins or you'll be big sads. And one of the most common ways to do this is to not hold the CPU properly and then you drop it and then the side hits the pins and sad times. But that has not happened today, or at least not yet. We secure that down into place, and then we can pick up our memory, and we're going for a 5600 megahertz kit. I'd probably recommend going for 6000, that's pretty much your price to performance sweet spot. But I wanted to use this is some Skill Trident Z5 RGB, because it's silver, and I thought it was going to tie the two things in quite nicely. So I open up slots 2 and 4, line up our DDR5 memory, give it a push, Do the same with the other. Let's do a quick bit of tidying up, and then we can move on to my favorite bit. That's not true. The favorite bit was actually throwing the stuff on the floor, because it's empty boxes and it's funny and it still freaks people out. But we can move on to something that's quite interesting, and I actually do want to get some input on this, the storage. And I specifically want to talk about capacity, because this is a 4TB drive. I think this is probably way too much for most people, but then I think I might be completely wrong on this. We've used 500 gig and more commonly terabyte drives for ages, but is that no longer enough? Do you think 2 terabytes is the new standard? Let me know down in the comment section below. This is the Samsung 990 Pro. Big fan of this, but you don't specifically have to go for this one. Gigabyte coming in with a semi-toolless M.2 install. I would prefer if it was completely toolless, but this does make it a little bit easier. You can just catch that in, drop that through, and then screw it down. I mean, to be fair, it's just one screw. Some other brands are 2, 50% better. Hold your horses a second there, folks, because if you are going for a cooler, especially an air cooler, you're going to want to consider mounting this now. If you're going for an air cooler, then obviously get this fitted, then you can put the whole thing in. But if you are going for an all-in-one like we are here today, then it is quite often a little bit easier to do the mounting now, at least the mounting hardware, because especially on this one, if you're going to use hard drive cages, you can see that they kind of block this huge cutout at the back, which means you might then have to put the motherboard in and then take it out when you realize your mistake. So today we are taking preventative measures. As for this particular cooler in question, this is actually a new one from Lian. It is the GA2 Trinity SL-Inf 240. I got close. 240 obviously being the size, and I would recommend that you go for the 360 unless it's dramatically more expensive. And because this is one of the new ones that has these interlocking fans, it's going to mean that you're not going to have all of these horrible cables trailing everywhere, and it's going to make your PC a whole lot better and easier to build. But again, these are not particularly cheap, so I'd actually recommend most people look at like a Deepcool LS720 or something like that if you're trying to save money. But if you do want it to go for like the best fans and not have any cables, then this has got to be one of the stronger options. Oh, hang on a minute, I'm being silly. The mounting hardware, where I've used this before, is actually already pre-fitted, and as you can see, it does actually use the default AM5 mounting hook, so we don't need to do any work at all. Ignore me for the time being. So let's proceed then to go ahead and drop our case down on our desk, and we can then line up our motherboard with the big hole at the back. Also, massive shout out, by the way, to Lian for actually including one of these little boxes for all of your screw management. Then of course, just fit this down. And something else I do want to draw your attention to, I'm not sure if this was the same on the other Evo, but look how big these grommets are. Big fan of that. The next step is always going to be our basic cable management, so plugging in all of our front I/O. You can move these cable bars up and down, but I will say actually this one, I'm not sure if this was just an intolerance, but look, I've now managed to bend that just by trying to get that out. Feedback to Lian. Make these stronger. Oh, they're white cables even at the ends. Most cases do not do that. Thank you, Lian. I can forgive your bendy bar in exchange for our all-white cables. No! The HD Audio's let us down. Lian, no! Quickfire cable management, USB-C, USB 3, front panel, addressable RGB, and then front panel audio. While we're here, I think I'll take this opportunity to mount our CPU cooler, and you can take this whole bracket out and move it around, but as it's a smaller one, I think I'm just gonna do it like this, to be honest. And I have to say that it's so nice to see so many different mounting holes. I've used loads of cases recently that specifically trying to like cram you one particular orientation or further up or further down. But here you can use pretty much anything. We can then proceed to grab ourselves some thermal compound that does come in the box. Gently place this in the CPU. Then you can just gently line this over the top of our socket. Just get it lined up over those 2 notches. So do use your hands first before checking for tightness with a screwdriver. And I have to say that hand on heart, the combination of that cooler and case combo has meant that that was the easiest all-in-one I have ever fitted. Today,
I love radiators.
I'll do ourselves a little peel at the top, but you have to say as well, look how much space you now have at the top. So you could definitely move that motherboard tray up if you wanted to. But if you were going for extra thick fans, like we're about to in a second, or of course you want to do push-pull, then you've still got loads of room up here. It almost looks a little bit too much room if you're not going for push-pull. But then now is the time for something extra special. Not the Unifan TL RGBs, it's these, the Unifan TL LCDs. Freaking screen inside. And I am expecting these to be a little bit thicker than normal, not just because you can obviously have better performance from a thicker fan, but because you have to think that there's more electronics in this if you are actually going to put an LCD in the fan. And I suppose a lot of you are probably thinking at this stage,
Why?
Well, for the exact reason that I'm trying to illustrate here today, being that if you don't want to go for a particular LCD cooler, maybe you don't like them, maybe you think they're too expensive, maybe you want the LCD somewhere else, or you can just have a bog standard cooler and then have your LCDs with the readout elsewhere. It's nice to have that flexibility, but obviously you can combine them together if you want loads of screens, but that really is unnecessary. So yes, sure enough, this is a slightly thicker fan. I mean, it's not actually anything crazy, but clearly it is going to be a perfect pairing for this chassis. It will use the same sort of interlocking style system as you'll see on some other fans, but do be aware these aren't cross-compatible with the controllers of the previous generation, I assume just because there's more data. So make sure you do have the USB ports on the motherboard itself, or you buy splitters or hubs or something if you're gonna mix and match. It's a little bit basic on the back where it says Unifan TLCD, but obviously the bit that you're really interested is this here, and it is going to be down to the software really, the make or break of this, because I'm sure you get great performance from the fan, but if you don't like what you can actually get on here, obviously it makes the whole thing a little bit pointless. While we're here though, let's also open up the normal TLs and have a look, well I suppose, at the differences. Will the thickness be the same? And that answer to me does actually look as if it's a yes. So let's get all three of our LCD fans, we'll lock them into position. Hang on a minute, where are the screw holes? They've got covers on them. Yeah, look, they just come off like that for that extra premium experience, look. So just fit these down into position. Something very important, by the way, that I've realized I've brushed over a bit is that these are reverse blade fans. So this means that you can actually have the airflow coming towards you and still see that LCD, whereas if you went for a normal one, well, the LCD would be facing that way or the airflow would be in the other way, which might be what you want, might not be. So do make sure if you need reverse blade fans, then you buy those. We get 3 more reverse blades for the bottom. And yes, I know this is ridiculously overkill, but it's gonna look absolutely insane. Now I've got to admit, I was pretty impressed with these fans until I started trying to get this lock on the top, because for some reason, it just does not want to go on. I've tried different cables, different fans. But it's starting to annoy me. Oh, I've broken this now. Good. Have I broken another one? Yep. Oh, they're different connectors. So TL LCDs have a slightly different connection to the LEDs, but they look almost identical. Well, better you than me on that one. That's actually a bit annoying. Then it goes on really nice and easily. I mean, I know that was my fault, but was it though? Regardless, let's now drop this into position. So we've also plopped 1 extra fan at the rear, which now gives us our total of, oh no, it's not 10, is it? 7, 8, 9. If we're using a 360, it would be 10. So our 9 fans here, and our controller should connect to all of the TLs pretty easily. Now I'm just thinking out loud here, because what I can do is use this second hub. We'll plop this in the hard drive cage, hook everything up, and we will use a USB splitter cable, because again, the motherboard only has 2 USB 2s on it, which is very normal. Most actually have 1 or 2. It's very rare to find one that has 3. I've stolen this from an H100i LCD box, and knowing me, I'll probably forget to put this back in, and then be very sad when I come to use that again, but hey ho. Well everybody, I'll be honest, that took me friggin' ages.
I hate fans!
I mean, Editor Cole, how long did I actually spend mucking around with all of that? Yeah, see, quite a long time. But only 2 components left to go now, which is pretty exciting. We've got our brand new power supply. This is from Cooler Master, GX3 850 Gold. 850 is actually the minimum that's recommended for this build, but I will say, because we're going for an AMD CPU that doesn't use like crazy amounts of power, then don't go thinking 850 is like the minimum. It's still the minimum I'd recommend, but what I'm trying to say is you're not really like close to the wire. You don't need to go for 1000 watts to cover yourself. 850 is going to be plenty. But let's plop this under our overhead, get the box opened, and then let's have a look what's inside. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised. It is a power supply. This one is black, fully modular, is gold rated, I think. But realistically, I think most people are going to be sort of looking about this sort of mark. And installing this should be pretty straightforward, because of course this is a dual chamber design, fan facing towards us so we can get the ventilation from the case. Oh, that's really weird and really quite bizarre. They've tried to be forward thinking with this power supply by giving you better support for 12 volt high power connection adapters, by giving you these individual, that's a CPU, by giving you these individual PCIe adapters that will then create 3 different chains to your power supply rather than daisy chaining. But the problem is, because we're using 3 8-pins, or at least I think we're using 3 8-pins with our graphics card, it then means we don't have enough, because our fan controller actually uses an additional 6-pin. And the thing that's really weird about all of this is that if Cooler Master wanted to be really forward-thinking, they would just give you a 12-volt high-power connection directly on your power supply, and you wouldn't have to use an adapter. So instead, let's proceed to actually double check our graphics card does have 3 8-pins before we swap it out. This is a really exciting card. This is the 7900 XTX from AMD and of course from Gigabyte. 24 gigabytes of VRAM, going to be very future-proof, not only for games but for productivity. But then also, price to performance of this for what is a very high-end 4K gaming graphics card is really good, especially compared to the competition. In particular, if you're a massive fan of Call of Duty Warzone, this is the card for you. So here we go then, always my favourite bit of the video. I know this is a press review sample and it has been to someone else before, but that is not going to stop me from enjoying this absolutely behemoth of a GPU. But yes, actually sad times, it does have 3 8-pins on the top, which means we need to swap the power supply out, but that's not going to dampen our spirits because we've learnt this together and you won't make the same mistake as me. Let's proceed to open up slots 2 and 3, pick up our 7900 XTX Elite, and then very carefully line this up with our slot and give it a nice push home. Tighten this up with those thumb screws. I was then going to say plug it in, but no. We're instead going to opt for something completely different, which is this one from Fractal. This is an 860 watt Ion 2 Plus power supply. I mean, to be clear, it is a very unusual problem. I think it's just the Corsair QX fans and then these Lian Li that use this PCIe power system just because it needs more wattage. Most of them use SATA. PSU in, then we can start connecting all of our power connections and then hopefully give it just one more spin and then actually get everything connected to the motherboard and the graphics card, including our ATX, our graphics PCIe, and then I think it's just our CPU here at the top left. So then, ladies and gentlemen, this I believe is hopefully our completed and fully working gaming PC. I actually want to start with the back because I think this is the best thing about what we've done here. There's quite a lot of cables but nothing crazy. You can sort of stow it down here, you've got cable management for days, and then when you're done you can literally just press this into position and there, look, as tidy as anything. No real cables at all. And be honest, was your gaming PC build really this easy to get the side panel on? Probably not. But does your gaming PC look better than this? That is going to be the question. Let us know your thoughts on whether this is a yes or a no down in the comments below. I will also say though that it does look a little bit odd at the moment without having the glass on the side. So let's get all of our panels and plot them back. There we go, that looks better now, doesn't it? That actually looks like a system, but I think it's going to look a whole lot better when we actually get it turned on. And I've got to admit, I don't actually know what to expect here, because I haven't seen these since Computex quite a while ago, and to be honest, it was a very short amount of time I got to spend with them, and they were sort of like alpha or beta at the time. Will they look good?
Or they look pants.
The only thing we know for sure is that they're not going to look anywhere near as good as the PC Centric mouse map. Grab yours with the link down below. Moment of truth then. It's on. The whole thing is silent, but we don't have any of these fans spinning. But then again, we do have some LCDs working. I mean, the cooler's spinning. I'm slightly nervous about our CPU thermals because I can't hear the pump, so is that definitely on? Well, it says 32 degrees, but then why aren't our fans spinning? Right then, everybody, it has certainly been a very interesting last couple of hours. Firstly, I've gone full sore throat, so sorry if my voice has gone. I'm sure you'll get over it. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, the rig is complete and we can do our peel. There have been a few issues, as I will share. But I think all in all, we have got something that looks pretty darn tasty. I mean, yes, I think I would still rather make this a little bit more all black or all white, but it really does show off all the hardware in its full glory. Once you've got all of the fans illuminated, you are going to fall in love with what you can achieve. I will say though that there have definitely been a couple of bugs, mainly being around this whole pre-release TL software that hopefully you will never see, but for some strange reason, this cooler doesn't actually show up in the software at all. The fans do, but the cooler doesn't. It is plugged in via USB. That doesn't seem to show up. I've used different splitters, different things plugged in direct. That doesn't seem to fix it. So we've kind of got it, well, just not controllable with USB, so no RGB. It does come with an RGB header, but plugging that in instead also doesn't give you any RGB. So I don't know what that's all about. And then also with these fans, if you have a very close look at the B-roll now on the right-hand side, you'll notice that we've got my face on it. Yes, I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? These are actually really cool, pretty high-res LCDs. I was expecting it to be a lot more pixelated, and you can customize this at the moment with GIFs, you can have photos, or at least like low-res images and PNG and JPEGs. And you can also have these different readouts as well. So you've got your GPU, CPU, and anything else really that shows up in the software. It's a tiny bit buggy as well though, because while it does work and it does remember what you've got, as soon as I turn the PC on after turning it off, it loses the orientation, so everything is facing the wrong way. So I'm not sure why it remembers what you've actually got on it, but then not the orientation. But hopefully this will be fixed by the time you're watching this. But anyway, that's enough about the PC itself. Let's jump into some games, starting with some Starfield. And jumping straight in at the deep end, this is max settings, so that's Ultra with FSR set to 4K. And as you can see, our frame rate is pretty wild, as we're currently getting around about 73, 76 FPS with everything cranked up to the max. And the game looks absolutely stunning, absolutely gorgeous. I've been really enjoying playing this actually. It's a pretty darn cool title. I mean, it's not going to be for everyone. I do find myself sometimes not getting bored, but thinking there's not much going on. But then other times when you actually really get into it, it does sort of start to pay off. But I need to invest a fair bit more time. It's also very interesting to see our CPU utilization. I've got all of our cores up here on the left. You can see that actually the workload is pretty evenly spread among all 8 cores. So I'm pretty pleased actually that it does run very well. If of course though you're more of a 1440p gamer, then you'd be very interested in this, as it's now the exact same settings, but we've turned down the resolution to 1440p, and as you can see you're actually a lot closer to 100 FPS now, with around about 90 to 100 FPS. I will draw your attention to the utilization though on that CPU, as you can now see that all of the cores are much closer to 100%, so we're properly putting this X3D to the test. Now for our next title, I'm afraid I'm going to upset die-hard PC gamers with a controller as we jump into some Spider-Man, and once again this is running at max settings, or actually it's slightly below as ray tracing is disabled, but this is running at the very high preset. But as you can see, our frame rate once again is pretty much through the roof, with around about 100 to 110 FPS. It's gone up 120! And every single time I do any benchmarking playing this game on PC, all it makes me want to do is plug this into the TV downstairs and just enjoy the sheer bliss that you're going to get from this. I absolutely loved playing this on the PlayStation, but there is no denying that this is infinitely better than the experience you can get over on Team PlayStation. I gotta say though that I am interested in what happens if we turn ray tracing on. Let's go to ray trace reflections, and we'll set everything to high, and then we'll have a look at our frame rate, and that has definitely made a difference. We've lost a fair bit FPS, but when you think this is pretty much a controller game anyway, and we're still getting 120 frames a second, then clearly this is going to be the way that you're going to want to play. This looks even better now, and I love going past all of those shiny windows and actually seeing the true reflections in them. I mean, here's your little demo. There is our reflections, and there's what's being reflected. Now, I'm going to leave Spider-Man to prove that he's been having his calcium and roll on the floor and be absolutely fine, to show you the thermals and acoustics. And I don't need to look at that, because I can tell you that we're currently getting 64 degrees on that GPU, 63 on the CPU, so maybe you don't need to go for the 360 after all. And here's your noise test. So basically nothing. I mean, the fans themselves, if you've tuned them and you've set them in the desktop, then this really is a silent system. I couldn't believe this was on, hence why I was wondering whether the pump was actually doing anything. Whilst you're gaming, you are going to hear like a slight hum, but once again, this is a completely silent room with like acoustic panels. So yes, I can hear it when it's directly next to me, but you have any sort of noise from speakers whatsoever, you are not going to notice this. And if you use headphones, well, frankly, you could crank everything up and you still wouldn't notice. Very, very impressive. But let's move on now to our multiplayer titles, starting with some Apex Legends. And once again, this is set to very high at 4K, and as you can see, the frame rate is through the roof, with an absolutely brain-stonking 220 frames a second. We've got company! Do I have time to set this to 1440p? Come on, come on. Yes, he does, just about, and we're now getting 300 FPS as I'm being attacked. I told you this was a disaster. This is your fault.
Oh, I want to see the 1440p numbers.
Was 210 not enough?
But here we are. This is the one I know you guys have been waiting for, some Call of Duty Warzone. And what you're seeing here is new Call of Duty Warzone. That's right, they've finally updated it and they've changed things. I'm no expert, but as you can see, we're currently getting around about 155, 160 FPS. But once again, this is running at 4K at the extreme preset, no less, with FSR set to quality. So arguably too high settings really. Most people would want to turn it down and get extra frame rate. But once again, we're saturating this 120 Hz display, so you wouldn't necessarily even need to do that. But obviously, realistically, it's all going to be about latency, so higher frame rates are always better. To be fair though as well, I know 4K gets a lot of bad rap for multiplayer, and I do agree, but when you're playing something like this where it is all about sort of spotting people far away in the distance, actually having the extra resolution really can help. There he is. Oh, he's got me, see mate. And as I try and actually get someone, I will turn this down to 1440p, so what you're seeing now is Quad HD, and we're now getting about 213 FPS, as I am slightly distracted as he goes for his loadout drop. God, I am bad at this game, aren't I? Let's do this the old-fashioned way. Oh, that hasn't worked. That hasn't worked at all. Disaster. But the good news is that we've built a pretty kick-ass gaming PC. I mean, I love this case. This was already a tip-top, awesome chassis, and they have made it even better. I love the fact that you can properly see all of your components without that frame there. It wasn't something that was distracting me, or it's not really something I cared that much about. But now having that ability is something I definitely appreciate. I love these new fans. I hope they can fix the bugs anyway, getting it all to work in one big ecosystem, because at the moment Corsair still is a fair bit better at that with their software. But other than that, I think these are probably my new favorite fans. I love the LCD ones. I know they are going to be very expensive, but obviously you don't need to have all of them. That would be definitely quite overkill. So maybe 2 or 3 would probably make the largest amount of sense. But again, make sure you're buying the reverse blade ones if you want to have them on the side. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you make of our system? Do you think we've done a brilliant job, or should we have gone for an all black system, all white? What do you change? What do you like? What do you dislike? Let us know. Smash the like button if you have enjoyed this though, it really does help out. Get yourself subscribed as well so you don't miss an upload. And as always, if you do want to check out current pricing on anything that was actually featured in this video, then you can find that listed down below with our Amazon affiliate links. But thank you so much for watching this video. Join the PC Centric Discord with the link down below, and we'll catch you in the next one.